The COVID-19 pandemic is first a health crisis, but there's no denying that this pandemic has had huge effects on other components of life. Today, we're going to address the toll COVID-19 has taken on education, both K through 12 and university. Remote schooling has highlighted some of the existing inequities in the education system. Not all K through 12 students are able to access the internet at home, particularly in rural areas where broadband internet is not available. Some districts responded by distributing mobile hotspots to students. Some had to have buses with Wi-Fi, park in areas where parents could reach and their children could log onto the internet. For example, the Austin Independent School District has been deploying 261 Wi-Fi equipped buses across 40 neighborhoods with little or no internet access. But not all districts had adequate digital devices to distribute to students. As is often the case, students from underserved communities have faced the highest barriers to learning. Many students also experience distractions at home, like loud family, neighbors, or surroundings that were not always conducive to learning. In families with multiple students taking remote classes, and potentially with adults working at home as well, greater demands for space and privacy at home created challenges for many families. Teachers and parents have also had to work together more than ever to support students during this pandemic. Parents have had to make sure the students are able to properly navigate webcams and learning software, and teachers have had to find ways to keep tabs on students, often without having them there in person. And parents and teachers have had to adjust to these new roles and demands despite their own stresses about adapting to remote work, trying to manage the fears of their own students and children, and trying to stay healthy and safe themselves. Schools meet many needs beyond academic ones. Students facing food insecurity faced a big risk when the pandemic first began. According to Feeding America, during the school year, 22 million children rely on the National School Lunch Program for free and reduced lunch programs. Closing schools raised many questions about how these children would be fed. When the pandemic hit, school nutrition programs found innovative ways to ensure that in-person, virtual, and hybrid learners would continue to have access to safe and healthy meals. Virtual and hybrid students were able to receive meals delivered at home or along bus routes, or were able to pick up meals at designated pickup sites. Students attending school in person received meals in the cafeteria or in classrooms, but with social distancing measures in place. Ensuring that students had continuous access to meals helped a lot of children dealing with food insecurity. Students with special needs faced additional challenges. Special education encompasses a range of needs, from children who could use some help with reading, to children with visual and hearing impairments, to children with multiple disabilities. For many students in special education, structured routines are very important to their well-being. This was disrupted during this pandemic. Special education students also have individual education plans, or IEPs, which are legal contracts between schools and parents that set goals for the child and outline the special education services to be provided. In March 2020, the government released a document that outlined the state's responsibilities to students, their families, and staff. However, guidelines were not consistently enforced, which left the students and their families struggling to navigate this new normal. This left many families with outdated IEPs struggling to keep up with the quick changes made in their schools and their districts. Remote learning posed special challenges for English language learners and for deaf and hard of hearing students. It's hard to tell what a teacher is saying or to pronounce a word after them if you can't see their lips moving over your video connection or behind their mask. For deaf and hard of hearing students, when lessons are pre-recorded, sometimes they are made available without adequate captioning or transcription. English language learners might also come from families where there isn't a fluent English speaker at home, and that can make it hard for families to stay informed about changes at school. One thing the pandemic has made clear is that there is no singular experience, and that what is good for some may be bad for others. For instance, without in-person school, some students who are victims of physical or verbal bullying at school have found reprieve at home. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, in 2007, at least 20% of students ages 12 to 18 reported being bullied at school. On the other hand, for students who experience instability at home, School can be a haven where there are supportive adults and predictable routines. Students also don't all respond the same way to remote learning. For some, the independence and relatively lighter oversight can make it hard to stay on track and make progress. But others have been able to self-pace, which can be great for an overscheduled high schooler. Students are also able to get more sleep since they no longer have to wake up to an early alarm clock to make an early morning bus pickup. Students of all ages have missed out on time with friends and on many of the extracurricular pursuits that they are passionate about. The end of high school is usually filled with memories of prom, graduation, and a fun summer before heading off into adulthood. But seniors of 2020 and 2021 have been robbed of these memories. Some students, especially those from low-income families, have had to take on more responsibility, either at home while parents are working or by getting their own jobs to help with economic distress. While college students are older and more independent than their K-12 peers, the pandemic has changed their education experience in a different way. Some students have had to move back home, which means leaving their social connections as well as foregoing privacy while living at home. Others have worried about traveling to and from campus, which could expose older relatives to the disease. This has been an especially big worry for those who live in multi-generational homes. Students taking online classes can miss out on the in-person support and relationships that are more easily available in a physical classroom. Many extracurriculars that are normally a highlight of the college experience have been unavailable. Graduating students have missed out on celebrating their achievements at commencement. And while many of the essential aspects of the college experience have changed during the last year, the tuition bills haven't, raising questions for many students and families about whether the cost is worth it to them. The effects of the last 2 years are sure to reverberate through these students' lives for years to come, academically, socially, and emotionally. Tackling the inequities that the pandemic has exposed and worsened will be an enormous job. Fortunately, vaccination rates are increasing every day, and with the recent announcement that the Pfizer vaccine will likely soon be approved for the emergency use in children as young as 12, we hope that fall 2021 will have all students return to a safe, in-person learning environment.